GoLoud.
Welcome back to the Weekly Roast. How's it going, guys? How the hell are you? How are your hearts? And of course, how are your heads? Guys, what's going on? How are you doing? Listen, it's so good to be back. Thank you so much to everybody who tuned into the podcast last week after a 6-week hiatus. It's so good to be back in the hot seat and to be roasting things with you every single week. Listen, if you're new to the podcast, it's great to have you on board. There are like 28 episodes now for you to go back and listen to. If you're new to the podcast or if you're new to me, follow me on Instagram at MeganMark. Every week we have a new subject, a new little aspect of Irish culture that we roast, and that's where I accept all of the contributions, suggestions and submissions to the podcast. Now look, I'm here with my trusty co-pilot and confidant, Kieran. Hello, Kieran.
Hello.
How are we?
Great.
Very good. Look, Kieran, we're all guilty of telling lies, okay? And every listener here is also guilty of telling lies. Some are more ridiculous than others, and some are quite mundane, you know? I think some of the most common lies seem to be, I'm on my way, or it was actually sitting in my messages, I just forgot to click send. That's another very good one, I think, in your 30s. Or we must link up soon for a coffee, you know. Tall tales, half-truths, porky pies, okay? Although I feel like porky pies is a term reserved for children or docile grandparents when facing questions about their unfinished dinners. Do you know what I mean? You don't say porkies when asking your partner if they've had an affair. Do you know what I mean? Or if an individual was responsible for a hit and run. You don't see the Gardaí asking people to come to the station to sit a porky pie test when there's been a murder. Would you like some facts about lies, Kieran?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. I've done some research for this podcast. 60% of people lie at least twice in every 10-minute conversation. So I'd like to begin this podcast by saying that I'm extremely happy and I've also got a huge willy. Brilliant. Don't popularise misery, Mark. Life is challenging enough without adding fuel to the already towering inferno that is Instagram making memes out of mental health conditions. This is a bit of a sidetrack, but that's actually really winding me up lately. Top 5 signs you have OCD, or the top 10 coping techniques deployed by those with ADHD. And then it's just something completely unrelated, like, oh, they always light candles after doing a deep clean of the house. You've just described the entirety of mankind. The trivialisation of legitimate mental health conditions and neurological divergencies is a real issue, and viral Instagram reels with generic isms are the modern day horoscope for millennials, okay? Or maybe that's a lie. Anyway, before I get too preachy, another fact about lying: while both men and women lie with a similar frequency, okay, they tend to lie about different things. Apparently, men are more likely to lie about achievements, whereas women often lie to protect others' feelings. So, for instance, whilst I tell other people that I have a massive penis, my girlfriend tells me that I have a massive penis. Brilliant. I would say the most common lies ever in Ireland have to be a teenager in a disco saying that his cousin is the kickboxing champion of Ireland, or South Dublin men wanting to appear to be more Irish by saying that they're related to Michael Collins. I feel like that's one lately. I was thinking about this actually in the weekend. The Easter Rising. Just to go on a little sidetrack. How do you think you would have fared in the Easter Rising?
Oh God, not well.
Like, I was watching Michael Collins recently, the Liam Neeson one, right? And I was just thinking about it. You know that scene when he's like, right lads, we've 16 rifles and 59 Hurleys. Cool, I'll have one of the rifles, please. If I die, who'll take my place? I will, Michael, but I definitely like one of the rifles. Do you know what I mean? Can I shotgun one of them? Or is it now not the time for puns? Who'll take my place? Micheál, it's conditional, okay? Like, I'm quite keen on the Rising, but I'm not exactly sold on the inventory. Do you know? And to be honest, I'm going to need a North Face and some energy gels if you want me sitting in a wet ditch waiting for an English sergeant to drive by. these guerrilla attacks are a lot less exotic than they sounded in the pub. I was expecting something a little bit more King Louis from the Jungle Book, you know, with a bit of pizzazz, cocktails out of coconuts. And on that note, this camo fucking face paint is giving me breakouts. So could somebody please look through the duffel bags and see if Padraig Pearse or Tom Clark included a bit of La Roche-Posay in their haul? Who wants a hurl? Nobody wants a hurl, Michael. Do you know what I mean? As much as I'm motivated by nationalistic pride and wish to see the back of these bloody Brits, I don't fancy my chances against imperialism with a €16 wooden bat from Elvery's, also known as Intersport. It's the weekly roast. Let's go.
Hi Mark. So when I was younger, I was in secondary school and my mum was very strict. I wasn't allowed out of school at lunchtime, let's say. But I was going out with a boy at the time and I used to meet him at lunchtime for an old shift. But this lunchtime my mum just happened to be passing in the car as I left the school. So I was like, shit. So I went back to her and she's like, what are you doing out of school? I was like, oh, I've got a pain in my stomach. I'm going up here with my friend and I'll be back down to go to the doctor. So she was like, hop into the car. I'll bring you down to the doctor. So I was like, okay, grand. So I went down to the doctors, went in, and I said, grand now, I'll go into the doctors. She'll say, what's wrong with you? I'll say, look, I got caught downtown. Just say that I've got a bug. Anyway, the doctor calls me in. My mom says, I'm going in with you. So I was like, shit, I can't do that now. So anyway, I hopped up on the bed and the doctor started pressing all around my tummy. And she just happened to press, down the right hand side. And I was like, that's really sore. The doctor said, acute appendicitis, you have to go straight in the hospital. No. I was looking at her being like, first of all, you don't have a clue. Second of all, there's absolutely nothing wrong with me. And thirdly, I was looking at my mum being like, do I come clean that I was going shifting? Or do I go to hospital and get my appendix out? So, of course I went to hospital and got my appendix out. I couldn't come back on it. Like, my mum would have killed me. So we went to hospital. I was about 15 and got the appendix out in absolute agony after it. And have a little scar on my tummy for the reminder of it for the rest of my life. Yeah, and I never actually got to tell her. I always said on my wedding day, I would tell her. I think she would have found it funny maybe then. But sadly she passed away, so she never actually found out. I know that I do think of it, she probably would still be thick about it all these years later.
Okay, may your mother rest in peace. Losing organs for the sake of avoiding shame over shifting is arguably the most Irish act of repression I've ever heard in my life. Like, although the way she says, I was off going shifting, as if she's gone fishing. Do you know what I mean? As if she's gone exercising or heading out gone shifting for the day. Like in terms of going to all efforts to avoid a confrontation, you've literally gone under the knife. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. This is the person that you want to be part of your gang. If you're operating some sort of street gang and she gets lifted by the feds, you wouldn't have any concern. Do you know what I mean? She'd be back on road by supper and there wouldn't be a thing wrong. She'd never squeal. You would have done well in the mafia, Suzanne. Do you know? Have you ever considered a career in Napoli? Surely there would come a point when you be going into the hospital, you go, actually, do you know what? I feel better. I feel a bit more sprightly. I'm going to go back to class. This has gotten completely out of control. And the part of the story I don't understand is getting caught down the town and then your mum be like, what's wrong? Oh, I'm sick. Oh, well, of course, let's just go straight to the doctor. Let's not wonder why you escaped the school sick and are now wandering around with your hands in the mitt of a guy who's potentially lying and telling you he's the kickboxing champion of Ireland and he's wearing more Lynx Africa. That's enough to spray in the pits of the continent of Africa? Does that make any sense? No. Let's go.
So we're basically out in town one day talking to these Americans and we kind of let on to them that on your 18th birthday you had to fight your father and if you lost you were kicked out of the home. So there was 3 of us there and we let on that me and my mate won our fights, but one of our other mates lost and he actually lived in my house now because he lost his fight against his father.
You don't hear accents like that these days, said the Pope to the Bishop. Fighting your father. Yes, the idea of fighting a dad is probably one of the scariest things of all time, is it not, Ciara? Mm-hmm. I mean, dads are just, even now, I'm very much old enough to be a father and most of my friends are, but there's dad strength and they've got hands the size of horses' heads. Do you know what I mean? When you see a grown man, like each finger like an individual rung of black pudding, dad hands are just pervertedly large. Monstrous myths made for mother loving and not much else. So yeah, now the idea of fighting a dad is terrifying. Now, we have to get into it here with the Americans, okay? Because lots of people were coming in with stories about Americans. Making fun of Americans isn't even low-hanging fruit, right? It's already fallen fruit that's been forgotten in the harvest, and it's not their fault at all, okay? But it's too easy. And we shouldn't laugh at them, but it's too easy, okay? I wouldn't even say it's like taking candy from a baby, because that at least requires a momentary deft sleight of hand and a relatively sleepy baby. Most Americans have roughly the same sense of direction as the GPS device installed in the cockpit of Amelia Earhart's plane before she flew across the Atlantic, or wherever she went in the end, okay? And their knowledge of history stretches back to around 2006, when Washington, D.C. was first constructed, and none of it, again, is their fault, okay? I had a breakthrough a few years ago. Once you change your perspective on America, stop viewing it as a superpower and realise it's mostly an economically deprived educational sinkhole, you realise how lucky we are, and maybe we shouldn't sneer at their joy when they visit the Emerald Isle. I was down, Kieran, in Castle Townsend in West Cork last year with Darren, and we had this amazing kayak instructor called Donal, I think, on the pier in, is it Keem? It's not Sneem. What's the name of the pier opposite Castle Townsend? Somebody will know and they'll tell me. But we had this kayak instructor and he was giving us a tour out on the kayaks. And he mentioned Americans and I went to slag them off. And he was like, you have to realise this is their history. Like, Americans cling on to their ancestry because that is literally all they have in terms of personal records. And we shouldn't laugh at them for wanting to learn. So I convinced two men from Tennessee on the kayak trip that Fungi the dolphin was my sister-in-law. Fungi as well. Weird way of... You brained that one, Mark. Nevertheless, a few people did write in about Americans to say that they'd convinced them that in Ireland Wednesdays don't exist. Like, surely not. I mean, tricking Americans that we have a similar monthly day count to the Scandinavian working week is it's a stretch even for soda quaffing, Wendy's attending, hurricane swerving Oklahoman standards, you know? Wearing more green merchandise from the O'Carroll's gift shop than St. Patrick at a brat summer party. Somebody came in and they said there was a tradition in Ireland, yeah, again, you have to fight your father, but when your balls dropped. Which reminded me, Kieran, got me thinking. I want to ask your opinion on this, right? You've got that concerned look you often do whenever I spring something on you. Two non-events that I expected to be pivotal moments of my teenage years, okay? My balls dropping and experiencing a wet dream. The former was a letdown and the latter has yet to happen, genuinely. I thought my balls dropping was going to result in a shift of the tectonic plates. It didn't even result in a shift with my neighbour. It was honestly the biggest anticlimax since the finale to that 3-part drama on RT1 called Amber that they aired in 2014. If anyone remembers it. I expected my balls dropping to be like a rupturing of the Giant's Causeway or a landslide of the Sugarloaf. Genuinely, I thought I'd feel it from my lungs to my feet and my voice would drop an octave and I'd immediately gain an inch up top and down below, but nothing ever happened. And as far as the wet dreams, by the way, I just thought like on your 14th birthday, just when you'd outgrown the tooth fairy, there'd be the arrival of like a new fictional friend, perhaps like the puberty pixie or something, do you know what I mean? And the puberty pixie would come into your room and help you come in your room. Do you know what I mean? But it never happened. God bless America. On we go.
Hi, Mark. Yes, I used to work with this absolute head case and the lies that she used to tell, like on the JD. They were so funny. So one of the lies that she told us was that her granny used to go to school with Elton John.
Good stuff.
Another lie about the same granny was that she was arrested at a football match for hooliganism. Another lie on a different day, she told us, oh yeah, her boyfriend was a sniper in the Brazilian army. Another one was that her auntie was the voice of the self-service checkout in Tesco. Oh, and another one was that she flatlined after painting her nails because she was allergic to nail varnish and she had to be resuscitated in the back of an ambulance. Like, there's so many more. Whoa.
Okay, so like, hold on a second here. Firstly, your granny being one of the Green Street elite is the most outrageous thing that I think I've ever heard in the history of this podcast. And then the granny being a sniper for the Brazilian army. I mean, was she good at thin straight lines? No? Like Brazilian, Yeah. Go back to the hooliganism. Anyway, Nana at the old football matches, giving the fingers, but like, you fucking want some, mate. This is, it's completely insane. I love, as I said on my Insta stories last night, it's the collision of frequent liars and stupidity. On that Venn diagram, there's usually a massive fucking intersection. And it's so hilarious because they always trip themselves up. They will always trip themselves up. So you flatlined from nail varnish. Good stuff. You're completely insane. On we go.
How you getting on, Mark? I've enjoyed your transition to a travel critic in the past month. It's been quite insightful and entertaining if I'm ever to go to South France. But so most ridiculous lie I've told is probably something I believed up until the age of genuinely like 15 or 16, but every flush of the toilet in an airplane, that the contents of said toilet would just be sprayed out like some sort of fertilizer over the thousands, hundreds of thousands of people below. Like, as if it's just one big fecal napalm strike, like something out of Saigon. Just replace the burning fire with the burning smell of shite. Here's Mark.
Yeah, okay. Like, I'm actually 100% on board with this. I genuinely would have thought the same thing. I would have thought it's just potluck, you know. Maybe that's why people don't want to live near airports, you know. The never-ending torrential downpours of excrement. Don't get the garage turned into a sunroom if you live near Terminal 1. You'll be submerged in an igloo of shite within a fortnight. Do you know what I mean? Like, I suppose when you think about a plane, Lou, as a mechanism, it does make sense that, you know, you'd flush it and it would just come out from, you know, below. I mean, I say that, of course, with as much knowledge of engineering as the guy who invented the tomato puree tube. He was a fucking arsehole, wasn't he? How are you? Will we make these really easy to use on a day-to-day basis? I'd make them easy to use for the first couple of squeezes, but once the tube is less than 45% full, I think we should make sure the edges are jagged and metallic and more of a health hazard than those rubber yo-yo balls in the hands of a toddler. Who invented the tomato puree tube? It's essentially a handheld death trap for the fingers. Good stuff. Guys, if you're enjoying the podcast, you are welcome to rate it and to write a little review, hopefully a nice one, wherever you listen to your podcasts or on the GoLoud app. And guys, if you are enjoying the show, do me a favour, let me know on Instagram at @MeganMark. I thrive, survive and exist solely on compliments and reassurance, such as the extent of my deep-rooted anxiety and fear of the world. So every kind message about the show goes a long way. Furthermore, if you do really want to show your love and appreciation for the weekly roast, send it to a friend and get them on board. The more, the merrier. It's wonderful to be on this ridiculously weird and enjoyable journey with you all. Now, on we go, my friends.
So my husband was going to sleep one night and he told me in a very concerned voice that he was worried about a flap of skin in his bum area. And I told him, oh, your bum flap filter. And he went, my what? I said, your bum flap filter. That should definitely be on the inside. You need to push that back in. I hadn't a clue what he was talking about and I was just making stuff up as I went along. And he really, really concerned, took to the internet, to Dr. Google and started Googling, what is my bum flap filter? And he hasn't believed a word out of my mouth since then. Anytime I give him any factual information, he takes out his phone immediately to Google it because he doesn't believe me anymore. But I had my fun and that's all that matters.
First and foremost, get that man straight to a hospital. What the hell is an extra bit of skin? Do you know, if there's one thing we can rely on in life, life throws curveballs at us all the time. And expectations, as we know, are the enemy of happiness, all right? But if there's one thing that we can rely on, the one constant in life is the smooth curvature of our own arse. Do you know, to be able to just put your hand down when you're lying on the couch wearing loose tracksuit bottoms, you do it every 3 or 4 months. and just sort of fondle your arse cheek. You're not going near anywhere bad, but do you not do that? I think everybody does that, and I think you're lying if you say you don't. You sort of just stroke your arse cheek. So finding an extra flap, pouch, piece, or fold of skin is not something that I would take shyly. I mean lightly. Brilliant. You 7-year-old, Mark. So this guy, like fucking Shallow Hal, has ran into his missus, okay? And he says that he's found an extra flap of bum skin. What the hell? Think about what you've just said. An extra flap of bum skin. And her gone, oh, well, of course, it's your bum flap filter. Oh, is it? I must Google it. Google it before you show your wife your extra flap of... Oh, God. I'm very intrigued as to what it is. And yeah, I mean, to be fair, well done. I'm glad she went for it. I'm glad she tricked him. It's worth the lifelong life of no trust. Well said. Let's go.
Hi, Mark. Long time listener, first time caller, etc., etc. I was a painfully gullible child, and my older siblings frequently took full advantage of it. So when I was around 4 years old or so, my brother poured a tiny drop of my waddy on my head, like just a dribble from the end of a bottle. But he put his hands up to his face really quickly and looked absolutely horrified. So I started to panic, and I was asking, what did you do? What did you do? And he told me that he forgot that my waddy would make me bald. So I went screaming through the house to find my mum, terrified that I would lose all my hair in a freak my waddy accident. I think the best story, though, happened when I was about 6 or 7. 2 of my siblings have different coloured hair to the rest of us. So instead of convincing me that I was adopted, which is what most older siblings do to their younger ones, they convinced me that they were adopted. And they told me that their mother was Anne Frank. Yes.
Sorry.
That Anne Frank. I didn't know who she was at the time. Again, I was only about 6 or 7 years old. So I also didn't know that she was 15 when she died in 1945.
It's such a fucking weird lie. I mean, like, when Otto Frank was publishing his daughter's diary, okay, he probably didn't anticipate that it was going to go on and sell 30 million copies. Slightly more than my book, but 30 million copies. He also probably didn't anticipate that there would be two children with ginger hair at some point in Ireland using his daughter as their fictional mother to isolate and, confuse their youngest sibling. Oh, God, that is amazing. There is a period of childhood where your sole sort of vocation is to disturb the peace of your siblings. Do you know what I mean? I remember one time I used to just come up with these inane things to my younger sister, but I'd force her to get to ask my mum questions knowing that she would get in trouble. So like my mum absolutely hates toilet humor. I know. Where did you get it then, Mark? I don't know. But my mum does not abide, does not find it funny, will not, no, under any circumstances, doesn't do it for her, okay? So one time I asked my younger sister, I was like, would you every time, for €1,000,000, okay, but every time you sneeze, you shit yourself? And she'd think about it, and then I was like, yeah, but you have to be careful now because people would just be going throwing pepper at you everywhere you go, and all that sort. And if you have hay fever, you'd be goosed, And anyway, I was like, you should ask Mum and see what she thinks, knowing that this is going to go terrible. And I just sort of watched from behind, and she goes into the kitchen and she goes, Mum was like, yes, and she's like, if I was to give you €1,000,000, would you shit yourself? And I just see my mum's shoulders shaking. And initially I think she's laughing. And then I go in and she's fucking crying. And she's like, did Mark tell you to do this? On we go.
Hi, Mark. My cousin, he literally believes anything that anybody tells him. He is so gullible. I have Walt Disney's autograph that I got from my godmother. She has an autograph book with loads of autographs in it, and he found it in my house a good few years ago now, and he was like, where did you get Walt Disney's autograph from? And I said, when he died, they froze him and they brought him back to life, and they thawed him out, and he was down in Easton's in the square. So me and my mum went down and got his autograph. He believed it. And then he told everybody, he went around telling everybody that Walt Disney was down in Easton's in the square in Tala, signing autographs.
If you've been frozen for even a week, you're probably not going to the square, Tala, first. You know, it's probably not the first. Once you get to room temperature and you become sentient again, the desire to hit the forecourts of the square is hardly the first thing to present in your consciousness. Do you know what I mean? This is the man who created the Aristocats, you know? And you think the first thing he's going to do when he defrosts is to go down and grab a kebab at Bixto's, you know, before coming home to write another masterpiece. This person has to be so... Oh, yeah, he's just down Eason's, just Walt Disney, just hanging around Eason's with a Sharpie looking to sign the cast of any Wayward Youth. Do you know, this is... Gullible people are the best. There was a guy in my school, right? I could have told this story before, but there was a guy in my... there's a guy in my year... And I remember one time in fifth year, it's like the first or second week of fifth year, where, you know, the teachers are giving it the old leaving cert now, where you're in the cycle, the final cycle, blah, all this shite. And no, I mean, very valuable shite, by the way. And I told him anyway that there was an English oral on the leaving cert as well. And he was like, an English oral? I was like, yeah, there's an English oral exam on the leaving cert. And he's like, oh, fuck, is there? I was like, what do you mean, oh, fuck, Paul? We speak English. We're literally doing it right now. This should be a walk in the park, even for you, a man who, until recently, thought that Mr. Blobby was his godfather. Do you know what I mean? Are you going to study for it? Yeah, Paul, I'm thinking of looking over some past papers. How would that test even go? How would an oral exam in English even go on the leaving cert, Paul? Hello, my name is Paul. When the weather is warm, I like to go to the beach with friends. I have 2 cats and a pet brother called Whiskers. My favourite drink is France, and I also like to hit the guitar. This guy, like, he fell for more fake non-uniform days than the school diary even allowed. It got to the stage of the teachers, they wouldn't even criticise him for it or give out. They'd just see the denim jeans and the flashing lights of the Sika runners coming down the hall, and they'd be like, well, what did they get you with this time, Paul? They said it was St. Patrick's first Holy Communion. Again? How many communions can St. Patrick have? Anyway, not to worry, just sit in the corner there and try not to sniff the glue. Do you know what I mean? Gullible people, good luck.
Hey Mark, my brother convinced me that the gorilla in the Cadbury's ad was playing in the air tonight, that he had just been trained really, really well, and I fully believed him.
There isn't an animal trainer on earth qualified to make this dream a reality. Like, with these things, you just have to stop and think about it. Okay, the Dairy Milk Gorilla, we all know the ad. It was probably one of the most iconic ads of the early noughties, okay? But let's just think about the steps needed to happen in order for this, you know, literal years upon years of academic, domestic and musical training. And that's before we even look at the societal integration of the gorilla. Do you know what I mean? Like, where would he go to school? Would he wear trousers? Who's he bringing to his debs, you know? Then you've got to tell the gorilla all about Genesis, about Phil Collins taking over from Peter Gabriel whenever Peter Gabriel left, then the solo career. This is all just completely ludicrous. The gorilla was not a real primate, okay, with a penchant for progressive rock. He was an incredibly talented studio drummer who probably suffered from heat stroke rather than whiplash. With stories like this, you just have to break it down step by step. I love it though. It's completely absurd. Okay, guys, here we are, the final section of the weekly roast on ridiculous lies. I hope you're enjoying it. If you are enjoying the show, do me a favour, leave a lovely review. Send me a message on Instagram. Tell your friends, and I'll be forever in your debt. All the best. Don't know why I'm saying all the best. Let's go.
So me and my friend was making buns one day, and you know the way when you get to the end of the bowl, everybody scrapes it and licks the bowl and eats the mixture off the spoon. So I told my friend that if she stood near the oven, that a bun would come in her mouth. So my friend stood beside the oven waiting on the bun to come in her mouth.
What?
Needless to say, it didn't.
Okay, like, I've not been weaned on the teat of Mary Berry or Prue Leith, but even I know that the term for flour raising isn't cum. Like, come on, okay? A bun would come in her mouth. Good stuff. Like some sort of oral sea monkey. Do you know what I mean? This is just completely, in terms of home ec and biology and just a basic fundamental understanding of how the world works, Surely not. Surely not. Stand by the oven and in some sort of divine act of radiation, the bun will just come in your mouth. Do you know? Stand over there by that oven and let the bun come in your mouth like a good man. Good fucking stuff.
Hey, Mark. So, yeah, for all of my childhood, I thought that my friend's uncle was Hulk Hogan, purely on the basis that she had the same kind of white blonde hair as he did. This went on all my childhood, like probably up until I was an early teen. I was like, oh my God, imagine Hulk Hogan being your uncle. That is so cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool, to be honest. And it's believable. It's believable because it's obscure. It's like I used to say this weird thing whenever I'd be in the pub. I just go, Jesus, lads, you hear about Dennis Irwin? And everyone go, what? Because it's such you know what I mean? There's these sort of people in pop culture who are just slightly off the everyday thought train, thus whenever, yeah. So I just fully support this one. And by the way, you're not the only one. Like a surprising number of people messaged in yesterday to say that they thought that they were related to Hulk Hogan. So maybe there is just a family of Hogans over here that are related. Do you want to know a harrowing story about world wrestlers? When we were in school, loads of the wrestlers came in to visit us in school. One of which was Chris Benoit. And we all got pictures with them. And literally 3 months later, he executed his family.
Why was he in your school?
They were doing a show down the road and they were using our gym because back then they were staying obviously in Bowles Bridge and I went to school near there. So there you go. Okay, guys, this next one's a special one. This woman wrote in and she's told me that her boyfriend sent an email to his boss to say that he wouldn't be in work the next day because he got a haircut. And this was sent at approximately 1:05 a.m. Obviously drunk. She then sends me a copy of the email that he sent with his permission, by the way. I can to read it out. So this is the email that he sent to his boss at 01:21 in the morning, okay? Me, apostrophes, as in quotation marks. Me head is still banging. Got a haircut. Thought it was an ingrown hair. Not sure after today. Got a haircut. And still not feeling great. See you Friday at this rate. Probably be awake for another typo. Few hours if you want to call me. Still want to go, but no alcohol for me. Apologies. Sent from iPhone. What in God's name was he thinking? Like, that is a howler to end all howlers. Got a haircut. Thought it was an ingrown hair. Not sure after today. Got a haircut. Still not feeling great. See you Friday at this rate. Unbelievable. You're gone. But the good news is he still works there. So fair play to him. Okay, guys, look, we got this one in. Now, it's quite long, but I want to get your opinions on this. So do let me know. I'm going to suspend my judgment until I've heard it in full. Yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this one, shall I say, because I do think that it'll be divisive. Let's go.
So basically, when we were in secondary school, around the time that everybody is getting boyfriends and girlfriends and, you know, seeing people, one of the girls in the year, she comes in, she's met this fella. His name is Adam. He's from Galway. He's a little bit older and she describes him. He's absolutely like, he's a model. He's a babe. And everyone's like, oh my God, how did you meet him? Because we're from Mayo. And she was like, oh, I met him through my cousin. She's dropping him into conversation initially a little bit. You know, me and Adam did this, me and Adam did that. And then she's going up and down on the bus to his house. Like at the weekends, she's heading off to Galway for herself. And then he's coming up to Mayo too and staying in her home house. But he's not coming to anything, you know, like doesn't bring him downtown with her or to the cinema or never goes to any discos. She said he's shy. Like there was times that she came downtown and she'd be like, oh, Adam's up at the house. Like, so she'd be like, oh, he's up at the house, but he's just too shy. He doesn't want to come down, this kind of business. And people are like, here now, he is not real. Like there is no way he's real. And then they'd be like, you know, show us a picture. Do you have any pictures of him? No pictures of him. And then, so this goes on for another wee while. And one day she comes into school. She is absolutely shook looking. I'd say she was probably worried about this all night long. But she comes out with this big story about how she got a phone call in the middle of the night from his friend, that she snuck out of her house down to Galway, and she has spent the night in the hospital. He has been in a car crash, and, you know, it's not looking very good for him. And she has come back up now. She hasn't slept all night. Like, she's come back up now, and after school she'll be going straight back down. So she kept this going then for about a week or so, and then he died. Just dead. Gone.
Gone.
Never to be spoken about ever again. And a few of the girls would have called her out and been like, this is not in the newspapers. Like, this is not on the radio. Like, somebody has got killed in a crash. Like, and there's no talk about it. Like, it's like, this cannot be true or whatever. And she'd be like, no, it is. But absolutely red as a cherry. Like, 100% not true. And she lives in our town now. And my husband is from a different town. But he knows her now as the girl who killed her boyfriend. Like, oh my goodness, so mortifying for her.
Thank you so much, guys, for listening to the Weekly Roast. I really and truly appreciate it, okay? It's just amazing being back. I missed you so much over the 6 weeks and this little weird world that we've built together. So it's so good to have you on board. Listen, as I said, to rate the show. If you're enjoying it, let me know on Instagram at Megan Mark. Tell your friends, leave a review. All of that helps and brings the podcast to more people and to more ears around the country and further afield. There are lots of exciting things afoot, and we'll be updating you very shortly. Have a great week. Take care of yourselves. All the best. Bye.